Welcome back, everybody, to another Stargate Files and Stargate Update with Jeff from Suns and Shadows and the Stargate Files. And this week we had a pretty good interview with Martin Gero on Dial the Gate and Gate World by David Reed and Darren Sumner. And there's some good points of discussion that we heard from here. We get a little bit of an origin story, and we get some other brief little breadcrumbs and hawk-eyed people who spotted things during the stream. And we're going to cover some of those bits and pieces. And hopefully we're bringing some attention to things that got glossed over in light of the big little breadcrumb that might or might not have come out, which we will get to at the end of this video. But that being said, let's go ahead and bring this up. What we're going to start off with is the origin story for how this all came together in a timeline of sorts.
So we got the impression that you've been working on this, trying to get this made for a couple of years now, but it goes back further than that, doesn't it? The kernel of this idea.
Long.
Yeah. What's the origin story here?
Yeah. So I believe my first meeting about something new on Stargate was like 2016, maybe 2017. I had done this show called Blind Spot, which was like a modest hit here in the States, and so it kind of opened up a lot of conversations about people which were like, okay, well, what are you doing next? Which most of the answer was like, oh, a Blind Spot for many more years, I hope. But MGM, we had kind of a general, and we were just talking, and I made a case for what I thought the show should be back then. And I think at the time they were kind of exploring stuff. I don't know whether the features were still, it was tied up basically. And it was going to be complicated because
I wonder if that was around the time that Dean Dumlin and Roland Emmerich were kind of throwing their hat in the ring on, hey, we want to come back and make Stargate movies again. That's just my initial thinking. I'm not entirely sure about that timeline wise.
I had a deal at Warner Brothers, and they were MGM, and they didn't really want to cross-pollinate all of that or give up any ownership. So we had some initial talks, like very, very early, but it just felt like it wasn't going to work. And then I was like, oh, okay. And then I heard Brad was working on something, and I was stoked.
The continuation.
That Brad was working on something, and he was working on something for Peacock at the time, and
I believe that was Travelers that he's talking about, or what would ultimately become Travelers. Ran for 3 seasons, and it's a pretty good time travel show with a lot of familiar faces, everybody. So little breadcrumb there.
And then I moved my deal over from Warner Brothers to Universal, who is the parent company of Peacock. And so they started talking to me about, hey, we're potentially doing Stargate. Is this something you want to talk about? And so I got to read Brad's incredible script, and we started talking about it, and and then we, even then we had started talking about an early iteration of what this would eventually be, and so Brad very gently, we had these great conversations, and I pulled in Joe because at that time I wasn't sure. Like it was just a confusing time. We were trying to figure out, like, it wasn't sure that Brad's script was going to get traction because of the people that had commissioned it had left. And so there was an idea of like, maybe we'd do something new, all 3 of us together. And I was over at Universal for some very specific things that ended up not going. But so there was some concern at Universal about, well, they didn't really want me to run it. And so it was, we were like, well, maybe the 3 of us will do this together. And
not really run it. Come the hell on. He's running the show now. I'm just having a little fun little comment there. But nice to see that Brad, and Joe have remained pretty close through the years, and that there's some sort of symbiotic working relationship. And that's great to have, just for having some good writing partners and people who are very involved with Stargate as well. So it's good to bounce ideas around, especially when suddenly I have an idea, even though it's from 2016, 2017, like, we're trying to figure this out. And then we're going to slowly get up to the point that, maybe that idea gestates into something else. And it sounds like Amazon had quite a few hats and pans in the fire, so to speak. And so they were trying to sift through what they wanted here.
we started talking about ideas, but looming, so that was like 2020, 2021, maybe. And, but looming over us was the fact that like Amazon was probably about to buy MGM. And so as those discussions creatively progressed and they started to talk about what the business side would look at between Universal and MGM, it all came crashing down because Amazon bought MGM, and that was going to be that. They were going to keep those properties inside of MGM, and I was like, oh well, bummer. And it was a dope idea. And then sure enough, when my deal at Universal was up, I kind of was just going around seeing what was available, and Amazon essentially were just like, hey, we know you have a history with the franchise. Is this something you'd be interested in? Have you thought about it? I was like, I've actually thought about it so much. I would love to talk about this. And so I had a lunch with Matt King.
I like seeing the passion here and the constant love for Stargate and wanting to get back to it. So it's not like something that, oh yeah, I did that 15 years ago. Sure, I can come up with something. This is something he's continually thought about, starting on Atlantis and working his way through. And I think that's a really good sign that you got somebody who's constantly been a fan and been thinking about Stargate for so long.
And Nick Pepper over at Amazon, and kind of didn't even really lay out my vision so much as my enthusiasm and why I thought it was so important that this, like, and baffling to me that this show was like that it wasn't already on. And to their credit, I mean, like, Amazon immediately had identified Stargate as like a prime candidate for a TV show. Like, they're just like a very secretive company. They're a tech company, right? So like the fact that you didn't hear anything isn't about their enthusiasm. It was about them trying to internally figure out what to get right, And so we talked, and that was probably end of 2023, and then it took a while to make a deal. And
2023.
And so yeah, and then I started working on it, June 2024. About pretty actively. And then when that was closed, I called Brad and Joe rather, and said, hey, let's get the band back together. They had so generously invited me when it was their thing. I just really felt like it would be crazy to do it without them,
That's great to see that inclusion. And like I said earlier, that great relationship with the previous iterations, from Brad's attempt to try and get it going to including Martin and Joe, and then Martin returning the favor back. Like, they clearly care about each other, and they clearly care about Stargate. And that's an interesting timeline, 2023 to 2024 to where we are now. And it looks like we're about to get going here in the beginning of the new year for January 2026. The writer's room is about to fire up.
To a certain extent, because of our earlier conversations. And then, and they said yes, which was incredible. It was crazy because I was actually in London for I was helping out on another Amazon thing in London. And I texted Brad, and he was like, well, I can't talk about this now. I'm in London. And I was like, I'm in London. And he was like, oh, he was like, where are you? And our hotels were right next to each other. It's crazy coincidence. And so he came over, and we just gabbed it up. And I was like, I think this is what I'm thinking. And he got really excited. And, Brad is just like such a great collaborator. He just like was like, and this and this and this and this and this. And then
start spinning it right there, right?
Yeah. And so I was like, oh, okay, awesome. And then I really just went and wrote. I was like, I just wanted to, because the tone of the show is so specific, I was just like, let me just try, even if we have to throw this draft out, like, I would just like to, let me try to communicate the fullest version of what I'm thinking. So I wrote a draft and gave it to Brad and Joe, and then shared it with our partners at Safe House and the Amazon team, and that's when the enthusiasm started to really cook, and then it goes from there.
Okay, so they definitely were working on the tone, having their experience from Stargate Atlantis, Stargate SG-1, and of course we're going to bring up the Stargate universe, where the tone really shifted to the other side. It was modeling a little bit after the Battlestar Galactica. That was a Sci-Fi Channel request at the time. Got way serious. The humor was gone, got really dark. And like there was problems with like, the not so much the chemistry of the cast, but the characters. And so like there was too much bickering, too much drama, too much. I'm just saying what a lot of the fan base felt at the time. I liked SGU. However, I do recognize that the tone of that, they weren't there with the other shows. And by the end of season 2, we were starting to get to that where they were becoming a family and a unit. That being said, I think the big takeaway here is they are trying to nail the tone. Like there has to be a good middle ground between Stargate SG-1, Atlantis, Universe, and whatever this new show is going to be. The tone has to be right. And I think that's very important to take away here is that they are trying to pay attention to the audience and the fans. And I think that's very, very important. And now we're going to skip ahead a little bit. And here we're going to be getting into the expectations for the show. And I think this is a good one to check out from the live stream.
I've been wanting to ask you this since I first saw your face on that Zoom. It's like,
oh yeah,
hey.
Well, I just I just wanted to be very thoughtful about it. Secretly, guys, I have been watching, Dial the Gate and Gate World for the past 2 years because I just want to stay. I just want to stay up with like, well, where is fandom? And like, and David, you've been such an incredible resource, honestly, because like I just have quite honestly forgotten a lot of stuff. And then Darren, like truly like some really thought-provoking essays on like what the future of, the franchise should be, and some like really interesting takes.
Both Dial the Gate and Gate World with Darren and David, both excellent resources. Highly recommend people, if you have not been over there, please go check those out. Great interviews, great information, great resources. Absolutely. That's why they went to them, because they've been around for so long and done such quality work throughout the years. And it's also good to see here that he's admitting like he is trying to keep his finger on the pulse of the fans and see where expectations are at and what people are wanting, not wanting. So they are considering what we all want as a family and as a franchise and as fans of this franchise.
And so it was good to know that like just with it was a way for me to be like, am I way off here? I don't think I'm way off. I mean, like definitely it's not a total overlap, but it's like I it was just nice to hear fans discuss the show online.
Yep. Agreed.
So for me, there was like no brainer. Like if we're gonna announce it, like it had to be on Gate World and Dial the Gate.
Absolutely agree with that.
Well, it's really gratifying because it feels right, particularly when we hit a year after the Amazon deal had closed. We hit 2 years, we hit 3 years. It started to get to the point where it felt a little like shouting into the void.
Darren, you're speaking really after my heart.
To know that you were out there reading and listening and thinking along with us.
And so was Amazon. Like it's like they're a data-driven company, and so like they, again, it's like it's taken this long because we wanted to be purposeful and thoughtful, and we're only gonna get one chance at this. You know, like, and I've said at the beginning, like, I'm not thinking of like, here's the 11 shows I want to do. It's really just about like, I need to make a great season of television. And
focus. This is what we want from Stargate. We want clear focus. We don't want a 20-year plan here and like 4 spin-offs. We want one season, one good season. This is exactly what I want to hear. This is what I want to hear. This is what a lot of us want to hear. And so he's not just saying this because you might think it's what everybody wants to hear. This is legitimately what he feels and what he's thinking, or he wouldn't be doing this. He has a great idea. Brad is on board. Joseph Malozzi's on board. Devlin and Emmerich are on board with this, and they're putting together the writing team right now. Everybody seems to be on board with this. I am very curious his idea and how focused and tonally the show is going to be. But let's continue.
If that season of television is a success, then we can figure out what the rest looks like. There
we go.
This
That's
is
what
a
I
show
want.
that has proven it can support multiple shows, and
There we go.
So, but right now the focus is uniformly on let's just make an incredible season of television, and then let hopefully the success of that dictate the roadmap.
And that's absolutely what it should be. We should not, like we've just gone over. Let's focus on one season, one good damn show. Let's kick this pig, start this off in true awesome fashion. And I'm eager to see what we got in store for us. Let's continue.
The future.
Wow. So let's get down to brass tacks. How long does a production like this take? So can you
there we
set
go.
expectations for us? I mean, if we're being real here.
Yeah, I mean, I just in a general sense, I think we're starting the writer's room on the other side of the year, and so it's gonna, these things take about 2 years,
Start to finish, everybody.
give or take.
Start to finish.
Shorter, might be a little longer. Hopefully, it's not longer, but yeah.
So yeah, he's talking 2 years, start to finish. So we're potentially looking at 2028. He did say sometimes it could be shorter, sometimes it's not. It really is going to depend on a lot of different factors like shooting locations, schedules, visual effects work. It's going to come down to edit. It's going to come down to a lot of different things, and a lot of equipment and a lot of personnel got to be moved around. You got to staff everything properly. You got to have all your ducks in order. Amazon can move a show forward through production pretty decently, but not every show is as good as the Lena Headey show. I forgot what it was called, but they cranked that bad boy out in less than a year. They still have to go through the scripting, storyboarding, casting, all of that. And they want to get this right. As you've heard through this particular video and the stream overall, they absolutely want to try and get this as right as possible for everybody. This is a lot of pressure for Martin and the team, and only time will tell how well it turns out. I'm on the optimistic side, leaning towards cautiously optimistic. I haven't heard anything that's going to scare me, at least not quite yet. Let's continue.
So that's just to set everybody's expectations. We're in for, it's going to be a minute.
It's going to be a process.
We wanted to announce early because we didn't want it to leak. We wanted to have it be controlled and be able to have, because it had been 20 excuse me live stream, 20 or 30 people inside the company that had known about it, and to make a show you have to hire 400 people.
Right.
And so that circle was going to start opening up, as it did in the last few weeks, pretty broadly, and we wanted the fans to hear it from us and not from a leak.
Well,
That's great.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that's gonna. I would imagine that most of that is post production. I would think at least
it's pretty
chunk
even.
Of that.
It's pretty even between how long it takes
Here's
to
your
shoot
breakdown.
and then again, I think Brad alluded to in that video. We have resources that we we haven't had before, and so we're talking to some of the biggest visual effects houses in the world.
Still use Rainmaker, please.
Amazing. And but that work takes time. It's not, it's a gift to not have to turn around a shot in 3 weeks, to have in some cases a year to build out a sequence.
Wow.
That's more or less what you guys were working with on the original shows, right? You had Rainmaker and other external vendors, and then you had Mark Savella building the internal team for visual
incredible
effects.
Internal team. Yeah.
But you guys were rolling through, right? When you're doing 20 episodes a year, you're rolling through. You got
40.
to decide
40
for
Atlantis.
3 years.
Yeah.
But you got to decide, okay, how many shots can we afford? How many shots can I fit in my episode? How long can they be? And then work with those guys to turn them around on this constantly rolling basis where what's the latest you ever delivered an episode to the network?
Oh, I mean, hours before. I mean, like a day
Oh,
really?
before. You know, like it is. And also something
Amazon
that
won't
is
allow that to
different
happen.
with all of these major platforms is, you know, the show goes live day and date across the world, and they need a certain amount of time also to do what's called localizing, which is like that they, you know, I think they translate into 30 plus languages, you know, which is incredible for all of those audiences.
Wow.
But
That also means there's going to be all these episodes will be done by the time they announce the premiere date. I'm absolutely confident in that. That's just my assumption. That's I don't know any information, but when they announce a premiere date, I can almost promise you that's the day that everything's finished and everything's been signed off and it's in the can and ready to go. And that's going to be an exciting time. Let's continue.
that, you know, that takes a certain amount of time. So like once we're finished the show, before it can air, they have to go through this like localizing so that all of the countries and, you know, what do they say, 240 countries and territories,
240
you know,
countries
at
and
the-
territories. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
at
yeah.
the same time. So, you know, that just the back end of that is really, really impressive.
One of the things about modern television that is frustrating for me, Martin, and you may be able to speak to this, you may not, is that 2 and 3 years between seasons. Is there a snowball's chance in hell that if the first season is successful early on while it's airing, that you could, is there any chance that we'll get if it's really successful, another season about a year later?
I love this question because this is a problem with most streaming shows is the long time in between seasons and people lose interest. If you can keep it to a year later, you're not going to have the big drop off. It could actually be good. It's also going to depend on the quality of the first season and how well it's accepted. But this is an excellent question from David, and you're really going to get a kick out of this answer.
Or is it 2-3 years now, and that's
No,
just
that's
the way
very.
it is?
I mean, I don't want to listen. If we are so lucky, you know, I think that is you're not the only one that feels that way. I think everyone in the entertainment industry, from the top down, wants to squeeze, you know, the time between seasons, because just as a view, we're all viewers. We love television. That's why we make television, you know. And so everyone has that ache and pain. And so yeah, I mean, you know, we'll certainly endeavor to do everything we can to get those times between seasons down. But again, I'm just focused on making one great season now. Obviously, it's not a limited series. We want it to be a bunch, but it's like my main concern right now is just making 10 episodes that everyone's going to want a second season for.
Well, 10 episodes, huh, Martin? How about that, brother? Quite a few of us in the chat during the stream picked up on this real quick, and wow, that's pretty interesting. Whether it was a slip, whether it was you know, just a general idea for 10 episodes, this would put it on par with what Amazon does for most of its shows. The big question I would have, and like we don't know for sure, but this seems that I'm going to call it. I think this is a slip of the tongue. Sorry, Martin. I got to call it out. But if that's what we're getting, I hope at least the first episode is like an hour and a half. That way you can kind of squeeze it into maybe more like 11 episodes, because most people used to consider the hour and a half, hour 25 minutes used to count for 2 episodes for pilots years and years for years and years. And like you can say it's number 1, but you're basically making 2 episodes out of it. So if we can get kind of a super length pilot, I think that would work out, that we can squeeze out 10. I would be more concerned, and I've said this in my previous video, I'd be way more concerned with 8 episodes. I'd prefer 13 to 22. Personally, I think Amazon might be missing out on the old formula that worked, but a lot of that is you got to have the static sets. You can't be traveling around too much, and you're kind of shoehorned into Vancouver, which I never minded that. I always enjoyed that part. We got our bottle episodes, we got our character episodes. So we'll end up having to wait and see how this goes out. But yeah, so it looks like we're we're in the ballpark of about 10 episodes, but that is pretty standard for Amazon shows. Most are 8 to 10 in general anyway. But I also want to bring up that he does get asked about this a little bit later on. And we're going to pick up right here, everybody. This is where we're going to get into where David asks him about the 10 episodes, but we're given the full context. There's a fun little blurb right here. So
you can ask away. I just can't.
We're trying to be fair. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to keep you putting you on the spot over
and to everyone that's asking a bunch of questions about the new show, like, totally fair. I'm so excited about it. Thank you for your question.
He wants to talk about it.
You don't have to wait until the show's gonna come out. Like, we will be doing some more of these. And we're planning to try to do some sort of quarterly update. Like, we're going to stay in contact, and there will be little bits will slowly come out. But like, today is very nascent. Like, we don't even have all the writers hired yet. I just don't want to spoil anything, but I also don't want to say something that could also shift, because the show is in kind of a fluid space.
Right.
Well, then let me, because
That's very fair.
You mentioned something earlier, and I want to.
Yeah, he is trying to watch everything that he's trying to say as best as he possibly can. And I totally get it. You're super excited. You really want to talk about it, but you can't. A lot of things are not pen to paper yet. Basically, all you have right now is the script for the pilot and maybe a little bit of the show Bible, but you got to get the writers' room together and get everything going and up and running. And you don't want too much to get out. And you also have to watch I don't know what his budget is or anything like that. So we are watching a little bit of the expectations. He's trying to be realistic as well. Like, there's a lot they still have to work with. That's why it's a fluid situation, is things are not exactly set in stone. We're getting a new show. The pilot has been signed off on. Everything else from that point is still in a very, very fluid situation. So it is a very good point.
To clarify here, you said 10 episodes. Is that fixed or is that potential? You don't know for sure right now.
Oh, did I say 10 episodes?
Yes.
I mean, yes.
Everyone knows.
Poor guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so it may not be fixed at this point, because
this is a good point.
There's a lot going on there.
It's Amazon at a later date.
Okay.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah. We'll get more information later on and a little more concrete answer. Poor guy. You could see the eyes go like, oh crap, I said something. But then again, you could read into this any number of different ways, and it's okay, Martin. We're on board with you. Don't worry about it too much. But there is going to be some pushback from people about the number of episodes. A lot of people would prefer more than what we're going to get. But like I said, this is an Amazon Prime. This is their formula. They do 10 episodes. Reacher, Rings of Power, 8 to 10 episodes. All these other shows, 8 to 10, 8 to 10, 8 to 10. This should not be a surprise to a lot of people. And the fact and if you misspoke, hey, clearly based on the pattern, well, hopefully we get 10 episodes. So like I said, hope for more. But the expectation, I would keep us around 10 episodes, everybody. Just keep in mind that could change. Not likely to, but looks like we're going to get a 10 episode Stargate season to kick us off. And then we're going to wrap this up with like one more topic in the next few minutes through the magic of editing. And in this last little bit, we are going to get into a question about the show being family friendly at all.
Claire Brownlow, how key is it that you want to make the next show a family friendly show that everyone can sit down and watch it together?
Love this question.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, that's a conversation that is ongoing, quite honestly. Like, I don't have a great response to that right now. It's a special thing about the franchise, certainly. And I have a 3-year-old who I would love to watch it one day. So it's just a question. We're just trying to figure out when she can watch it. That's part of the conversation we're having now.
So they are looking at trying to make this a little bit on the more family-friendly side. Maybe not so SGU, maybe a little more Stargate SG-1 Atlantis. It goes back to that whole question about tone from early on. And I think that's really important to try and watch the tone, have a focused show. 10 episodes will force them to be focused and on point. I just hope that there's an episode or two in there where you get a little more of the character driven stuff, not so much the main storyline point. Got to have a little bit of breathing room for your characters and your story and your setting. And I think that's really important. But Martin Gero is a proven writer. He did a fantastic job on Stargate Atlantis. And we got Brad involved. We got Joseph involved. And one last little bit is he only briefly talked about Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich. They are not in the creative room, but they are executive producers, which means they can be consulted on some things. That will always bring me back to, we might be doing something that ties into the movie a little bit. In what way? Only time will tell. Thank you for tuning in to our Stargate update. There's always some interesting news going on with Stargate these days, and we know you want to hear about it, and we want to talk about it. So we'll hit up all the sources. We'll do our digging. We want to have you along with us. We do a Stargate review show every Thursday night called the Stargate Files, 8:15 p.m. Pacific Time, 11:15 p.m. Eastern Time. Always available for a replay, but you'll want to check it out. We have a good time. We have some great guests. We'd like to talk about the current news and some other fun and interesting things happening in the world of Stargate. So thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time.